Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me again. I find it a pleasure to have another opportunity to do another presentation. Today, the focus of my presentation is going to be the project management process. There are three lesson questions this presentation will attempt to answer. The first question is, what does the project management process involve? Lesson question number two, how can equality and diversity be embedded in the project management process? And the last question, number three, how can this project management process be applied to my workplace? To your workplace. First of all, let's have a look at the definition of the word process. What does process mean? As I've always pointed out, you do not tend to have the definition of any term. There are numerous definitions which are given in different publications, and what tends to determine a definition, among other things, is the context in which the word or term is used. So I will begin with a general definition, or a definition you may describe as generic. That's one that I've taken from the Oxford Dictionary. A process is defined as a series of actions or steps taken in order to achieve a particular end. So you have key components in a process. First, you have actions or steps, and second, you have an end. So it's not enough to just have actions or steps. It's not enough to just have an end. You must have both to refer to it as a process. You must have actions or steps, and you must have a particular end. When you talk about a particular end, it is a definite, a certain end that is known, an end which is known, an end which is definitive. So a series of actions or steps taken in order to achieve a particular end is a description of a process. Now that we understand what a process is, let's try and define the project management process. If you hadn't watched it, I defined project management in my last presentation, an introduction to project management. Please check it out on YouTube. Now, it is from that previous definition and the definition that I've given today of process that we will get an idea of the meaning of project management process. Now, here's my attempt at defining project management process. You may have a better definition than mine. That's fine. We have different takes on what terms mean. But what is important is for the term to make sense in a particular given context. Here's my take. I define from the previous definitions we gave in the first presentation, the definition of project management and the definition we've just looked at of process, a series of actions or steps taken in the initiation, planning, organizing, monitoring and controlling, and leadership of a project to achieve a particular end. Like I said, you may have a different definition. As long as it contains the key components of project management, the definition will be fine. Now let's look at the basic project management process. Now I have to acknowledge my source here. That is Duncan 1993, courtesy of the Project Management Institute. Now, in the diagram there, you see initiation. Now, that's the first thing. That's the first of a series of steps. That's the first of a series of actions. The initiation is when a project idea is conceived, the inception of the idea. That's the first thing. And when the idea has been conceived, maybe the idea most of the time is still in the head of the person who has thought of the idea. Of course, there may be opportunities to brainstorm that idea so that someone is testing out whether that idea makes sense, whether that idea would be accepted, whether that idea would be welcome within a given context. But still, we are at the stage of initiation where the project is not yet begun. There's no plan, it's just an idea. And from the idea, remember in the last presentation I said, it is not enough to just have an idea. Ideas on their own are not enough. You need to then go on to the next stage, which is planning. And planning is very key. That's where you are thinking of, okay, what will be done when? What is needed? The resources? How much time is it going to need for the project to be successfully carried out? What skills levels are going to be needed? The people, the human resources that are needed, and what is the quality of the product that we are looking to come up with at the end of this project. All of this and other considerations is very, very important at the planning stage. A plan which is detailed must have all the key components taken account of. The budget level, how much is going to be spent, how much is available. All that needs to be taken into consideration at the planning stage. And what are the success indicators going to be like? That's another consideration. How do we know we've succeeded? We will have succeeded if we do A, if we are able to achieve B, if we have done C, when we've done D. All that is part of planning. The more detailed and clearer the plan is, the more likely the project is to succeed. And we are thinking of a range of considerations at the planning stage. What activities are going to be involved? Who is going to be responsible for these activities? What are the policies going to be like in order to ensure that the control mechanisms are there which regulate the behaviors, the actions, and processes that are going to be undertaken by people, by the parties involved? Who is the supplier going to be? What is going to be the line of authority, the line of communication? What is it going to be like? There's a lot that is needed to be considered at the planning stage. And then you have the executing stage, where the plan is put into action, where the plan is put to work. It's all right to have a plan, but a plan with no action is of no use. At some point, the plan needs to then be implemented. And the implementation stage is what is referred to in this diagram as executing. And while the execution is going on, there must be also controlling and monitoring. And when you're controlling and monitoring, you're checking to see whether the plan is working. Is it effective? Is it being followed? Are there any revisions or minor corrections that need to be made? If it is not working, you cannot move to closing. You need to go back to the plan any amendments that can be made. Revisions to the plan can be made. That's why you have that arrow which is pointing back to the planning. And when you've made those amendments or alterations or minor changes, the tweaks to the plan, again, those alterations, those modifications need to be tested, they need to be put to work. Hence, you go back to the execution. And when the execution is being done, it's being undertaken, there must be again the controlling and monitoring to see if things are working as they should, to see if people are working as they should, to see if the time frames are compatible to the overall goals or goal of the project. The controlling and monitoring is very important. This is where you check before you reach the end whether or not you will be able to meet your goals at the end. If you find something needs changing again, you can go back to the plan, make the changes, make the tweaks, and also bear in mind as you're making the tweaks that this may have an impact on the time it will take to complete the project. Some of the tweaks may not take too much time. Make the modifications, again you test them out, you go back to the execution stage. If or when you're satisfied at the control and monitoring point that yes, things are going to plan, you can proceed. And then the last stage is closing. That is the end. That is the finishing point of the project. There's no point starting a project if you're not going to finish it. There's no point planning for the project if you're not going to finish it. There's no point of executing the project if you're not going to finish it or close it. And there's no point of controlling and monitoring if you're not going to complete the project. So it is important that you will at some stage reach the closure, reach the end, reach the finish line of the project. So that is the process. It's a basic project management process. Now, different organizations and different project types may require different variations of this model. So it may not always occur in the sequence. It may not always occur in these exact steps. Some projects may be more complex than this basic process we are showing here, and they may have more actions, more series of steps and actions. It depends on the complexity and nature or type of project and the quality designed, the quality of the project, the product, the quality of the service at the end of the project. But these are the basic actions and steps of project management. Now, how do you embed equality and diversity? Before we look at that, we need to first of all, again, have a look at some definitions. First, we start with the definition of equality. Now, the University of Edinburgh provides a definition. I think it's comprehensive in the context of the UK. We have the Equality Act 2010. Different nations, different countries will have different definitions depending on their legislations, depending on their laws on equality and diversity. Now, in the context of the UK, the definition provided by the University of Edinburgh is quite apt. It goes ensuring individuals or groups of individuals are not treated differently or less favorably on the basis of their specific protected characteristic, including, so these are examples of protected, what are known as protected characteristics under the Equality Act: race, gender, disability, religion or belief, sexual orientation, and age. So equality will mean that whatever background, whatever characteristics an individual may have, or characteristic an individual may have, they still have to be treated fairly. They shouldn't be treated any differently because they are of a certain race, because they are of a certain gender, or disability, or religion, or belief, or sexual orientation, or age. So when you are conducting your project, from initiation to closing, from the start to finish, from beginning to end, and every other step in between, or actions in between, at no point should individuals be treated any differently or less favorably on the basis or just because of a protected characteristic they may have. Now we go on to diversity. Again, same university, the University of Edinburgh defines diversity as a recognition or respect in the value of people's differences to contribute and realize their full potential by promoting an inclusive culture for all. So the aim of diversity is to recognize, respect, and value people's differences to contribute and realize their full potential by promoting an inclusive culture for all. So in the context of project management, in the context of the project management process, there must be a deliberate recognition, a deliberate respect, a deliberate value of people's differences. There is a high likelihood, today's world is cosmopolitan. That means you have people from different backgrounds, both with different characteristics as well, even protected characteristics in the context of the Equality Act 2010. And regardless of that, there must be a recognition and a respect and a value of those differences. They must be celebrated. People must be happy to work together. Remember, there is a common goal. You're all there for a common end goal. That's the sole purpose of the project. There is a common end goal, and that must unite everyone, regardless of their protected characteristic. Therefore, how do you embed equality and diversity? You do this by treating all stakeholders, i.e., everyone who has a stake, everyone who has an interest in this project, must be treated. And that includes product, service users. They must be treated according to their needs. Now, in the context of the Equality Act 2010, there is a difference between treating people the same and treating people equally. Treating people the same means that it doesn't matter what that person's needs are, they're going to be treated the same as the next person. Say one person is a wheelchair user and the other one is not a wheelchair user. If you are going to treat them the same, that would imply that the wheelchair user will not get a ramp in order to access certain parts of the building. Yes, the person who doesn't use the wheelchair will not need a ramp. If you are going to treat them the same, you say, oh, this person who doesn't need a ramp, i.e., the person who does not use the wheelchair, if this person is not going to get a ramp, then the wheelchair user, we're not giving them a ramp. No, you are not going to treat them the same. You treat them according to their needs. So the person who doesn't need a ramp, that's fine. But the person who needs a ramp, the person who is in a wheelchair, needs one provided for them. All reasonable adjustments should be made to make sure that a person with, for example, a disability even a physical disability person who is in a wheelchair, all reasonable adjustments should be made to ensure that they have equal access to the building. That is what equality means. So all stakeholders are being treated according to their needs, irrespective of their protected characteristics. Again, please see Equality Act 2010 for further details. And this should not only be done at one stage or at the beginning or in the middle of the project life cycle. This must be done throughout. So what have you done to ensure that everyone is treated equally at, for example, the initiation stage? What have you done to ensure that everyone is treated equally at the planning stage? What have you done to ensure that everyone is treated equally at the execution stage? What have you done to ensure that everyone is treated equally at the controlling and monitoring point? And what have you done to ensure that everyone is treated equally at the closing stage? So it's not just at one part of the project cycle, life cycle. It is throughout all stages, all steps, all activities, all actions, all plans, even in your allocation of resources. Every component, every critical component of the project life cycle must take into account the equality and diversity needs of the stakeholders. It means recognizing, respecting, and valuing all stakeholders' differences throughout the life cycle of the project need to be celebrated. People need to be celebrated when they've done well. So if people are meeting their targets, it's good to motivate them by acknowledging the good they are doing while respecting and recognizing their differences. That's how we would embed equality and diversity within the project management process, and making sure that members are not discriminating against each other, the members of the project delivery team. Now, how do you apply it to your workplace? I will leave it to you, but I'll give some hints, some tips on how you can apply. Uh, Number one, the process of project management, and number two, the embedding of equality and diversity within the project management process. You have to take into consideration the setting. What does the setting do? What sector is the setting in? For example, how you can manage a project within an education setting will be different from how you can manage a project within, say, a care setting. And how you manage a project in a care setting will be different from how you manage a project in a health setting, in a hospital, or a general practitioner setting. So the setting is going to be important because that sets the context tone. Then you have the project scope. What does the project involve? What does it cover? Where does it begin? Where does it end? It is also a key consideration there. And then you are also interested in the project cost. How much is it going to cost upon completion? And then the quality. What is the desired quality? What is the quality benchmark? What is the quality standard that you're expecting to have of the product or the service at the end of the project? That again will determine how the project management process is going to be implemented. The skill or experience level, how experienced are the individuals within the project delivery team? Do you have the appropriate skills level? Are you going to outsource, or are you going to make use of existing stuff? Again, that will determine the application of the process and the embedding of equality and diversity. Then you have the budget. The budget and the project costs are linked. How much money is available? So project cost is how much is it going to cost? The budget is how much money is available. Is the money available consistent to the cost? Or is it less? Or is it just enough? That will determine how you're going to apply the process and the embedding of equality and diversity in your workplace. Of course, we've talked about equality and diversity a lot, right? Time available is important as well. How much time is there? When should the project be done by? Do you have the time to do it by that time? Do you have the resources to do it by that time? How about the supply of those resources? Is it going to be steady? Is it going to be consistent? Is it going to be constant? Or will an event outside the control of your organization or your project delivery team, will an event outside that control have an impact, like a strike or a natural disaster, which may have an impact on your ability to lay hold of the resources or materials needed to carry out the project? That may have an impact on the time. And then the ethics, and that includes equality and diversity. Are you doing it in an ethical manner? There's no need. Do not cut corners in the project. Some projects fail because people who have tried to cut corners, maybe cut corners in terms of standards, in terms of legislation, in terms of quality. Ethics must be taken into consideration when you are undertaking a project, however urgent it is. Do not cut corners. At the same time, you must embed equality and diversity in the execution, even the initiation and the closure of the project, and every other step and action in between initiation and closure. Now to the lesson questions. Can you answer them now? Lesson question number 1. What does the project management process involve? Lesson question number 2. How can equality and diversity be embedded in the project management process? And the last question, lesson question number 3. How can this project management process be applied to your workplace? Some references for you before I go, if you want to read further on the project management process. Like I've cited during the presentation, you've Duncan there, 1993, The Process of Project Management, published in the Project Management Journal in 1993, volume 24, issue number 3, pages 5 to 10. It's a very short article. And then you have the Project Management Institute. Go to that website, you'll find some very useful resources there. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you for being with me. This is Conti Gabi checking out. Bye-bye.